So someone is asking for a quick recap. So let us do a quick recap of what we have done so far. Okay. So yeah, I think we have done till bacteria. Correct. So what you need to know is like we were studying about biological classification. We are in this chapter which is called as biological classification. So in this chapter, we'll try to study about the five kingdom classification. Okay, which was proposed by Whitaker. So he classified all the organisms into five different kingdoms. The first kingdom being Briju Anand, you will be like, you listen to me, you will understand what it is, and then like you will get it. Okay, don't worry about it. I think there might be some extra classes which you attend. I think it should be like taken care of. Okay, so there is this five kingdom classification. What is this five kingdom classification? All the organisms in this earth has been divided into five different kingdoms. One is the group of kingdom Monera. The second one is kingdom Protista. The third one is kingdom Fungi. And the fourth one is kingdom Plantae. And the fifth one is kingdom Animalia. So this is all based on how what kind of cells are making it, what kind of tissue organization is there, whether it is cellular organization or tissue organization. Based on that, we have been classifying these organisms. So when it is unicellular and prokaryotic, it is Monera. When it is unicellular and eukaryotic, then it becomes Protista. When it is multicellular, eukaryotic, and saprotrophic nutrition, then it comes under fungi. If it is multicellular and eukaryotic, and if it is coming under autotropism, then it will come under Plantae. If it is multicellular, eukaryotic, and heterotrophic, it will come under Animalia. So this is how a basic classification we can say. But these are not the only criteria that were there. There were modes of reproduction which was considered into the correction. And then what kind of cell wall it is having. So all those things matter. So they have taken some 5 or 6 criteria. And then based on that 5 or 6 criteria, you have been classifying these groups of organisms. All the organisms in this earth has been classified based on some 5 different properties. We have studied what those properties are already. Okay, and this is what is the basic understanding of five kingdom classification. So now if you are like going to talk about this thing, I mean like we were studying about Monera. So what we were supposed to do in this chapter is we were supposed to study about kingdom Monera, Protista, and fungi in this chapter. Separately, we will study as a chapter of Plantae, and then separately we'll study about Animalia as a chapter. Okay, so basically these three things we will see in this chapter, and this one we will try to study as a separate chapter. Similarly, Animalia we will try to study as a different chapter, is what I had told you. So now we were like, we have started with Monera already. We saw that Monera is classified into 2 basic categories. One is what we call it as the eubacteria, and the other one is what we call it as the Archaebacteria. This eubacteria is further divided into two types. One is what we call it as bacteria, and the other one is what we call it as cyanobacteria. Okay, so what we have done so far in this class, in this chapter, is we have studied the basic properties of Monera. Okay, and then we have studied what is this bacteria is all about. We have completed these concepts fully. So today we will go into cyanobacteria and we'll try to study about Archaebacteria. I think we should be able to complete it today. We should be able to complete Monera today. And then tomorrow, if we are going to start, we will be starting with Protista. Okay, so this is what we are, this is what we have been doing. So let us start the class today. So we have studied about bacteria already. We have studied the different types of bacteria based on shapes. We have studied about the cell wall of bacteria. Okay, we have studied about gram positive, gram negative bacteria. We have studied about plasmids, how plasmids, what is the role of plasmids. We have studied about the ribosomes, what kind of ribosomes are there. Yes, we have drawn a diagram and then we have explained it. And then we have also studied about conjugation and pili. Okay, so we have studied about these things so far. With the thing, the bacteria concept is like slightly over. Okay, and cyanobacteria now we are going to study. Yeah, we studied about inclusion body also. Yeah. So now we are going to start with cyanobacteria. What is the large and small subunits of ribosome means? Like ribosome is made up of two subunits. Okay, like how you are made up of head, hand, body, leg. You are made up of four different distinct parts. Your body is made up of four distinct regions. Your head is one region, body is one region, legs are one region, hands are one region. So similarly, ribosome is also made up of two regions. One is what we call it as like the larger subunit, and the other one is called as a smaller subunit. Okay, both these things join together to form a whole ribosome. Just a second, hang on, please. These are the ones. First, I will write the notes, and then you can copy it. Then you can I'll discuss these concepts. Okay, so quickly start writing also simultaneously. Just a second. Okay, so first we'll complete this basic ideas of cyanobacteria. I have just given this basic information. Then we can go for the structure of this ultra structure of the cyanobacteria, the cellular structure. So what you need to know about the basic thing is cyanobacteria are also what we call it as the blue-green algae. Please understand, cyan means a color. What is the cyan color? Blue-green. That peacock color is there, no? That is what we call it as cyan usually. That peacock green or a slightly darker version of the peacock green is called as cyan. So blue greenish, blue and green, if you're mixing it together, whatever color that you're getting, that is what we call it as cyan. So the cyanobacteria are group of bacteria. Okay. So they are prokaryotic structures, which we know it as the earliest oxygenic photosynthesizers. What is the meaning of it? So when the earth first formed, the first formed organisms are not autotrophs. Okay. Why? Because oxygen was not there in the atmosphere. Okay. They were I mean, like, they were first formed where, like, mostly they were like kind of using other things. They were heterotrophs. Slowly the first autotrophs which came were also not photoautotrophs. Photoautotrophs means something which will use the sunlight. Why? Because please understand, when the earth was formed, the first formed organisms were all deep inside the aquatic zone, and your sun was there, and the sun was there, it was trying to come, there was no ozone. Okay, so if the organism was outside, what would happen is this ultraviolet radiation would kill this organism, causing cancer. Okay, so earlier stage ozone was not developed. So what happened was the first formed organism should have been uh, an aquatic creature which was living inside the water, which was trying to eat other particles. Okay, so they might have been aquatic heterotrophs first. Later, what would have happened? Some of these should have been, yeah, something like a zooplankton, correct? Something of a zooplankton, they should have been there, aquatic, inside, deep inside the water, they should have been. And after that, what could have happened? Some of these organisms might have got properties of autotrophism, and they should have become chemotrophs, chemoautotrophs. Excuse me. What is the meaning of chemoautotroph? Something should have been synthesis. I mean, like, ability to produce food with chemicals. And later, what would have happened? The chemoautotrophs should have advanced to photoautotrophs. And some of these photoautotrophs should have released oxygen. Okay, and this oxygen should have gone outside and it should have formed the ozone. So you would have studied about ozone formation in 10th standard. Oxygen reacts with ultraviolet radiation to form oxygen radicals, and what will happen? Oxygen radical will react with oxygen to form ozone. In environment chapter you would have studied in 10th standard. So this is how, the in the presence of ultraviolet radiations, when oxygen is liberated into the air, ozone would have formed. So probably these cyanobacteria are the first class of organisms which were responsible for the production of oxygen for the formation of ozone. Okay, so because they have the very basic cell structure, they are the first sort of, I mean, like, we don't know whether it is true or false, but looking at the structure, looking at the way the organism is, we are able to understand that probably these are in large numbers. Probably these are the organisms which are responsible for the production of oxygen in the early earth. When the earth formed and organisms came into the existence, probably the cyanobacteria were the ones which are there. That is what I'm explaining it here in this particular point. They are the earliest oxygenic photosynthesizers. Okay, so where do they occur? They can occur in fresh water, they can occur in seawater, they can occur in warm places and moist soil. So in all these places, they can be there. Thambi, if you are raising the hand, I cannot understand what is that you want. So please type the thing, that questions that you have in mind. Okay. So these organisms contain what we call it as pigments, photosynthetic pigments. So you are able to see chlorophyll A. Chlorophyll A is something that you find in higher plants. So these cyanobacteria is also having chlorophyll A, based on which what we can say that probably these are the precursors for plants today. Okay, because unicellular structure with the chlorophyll A is only water. It is only cyanobacteria. So, which means this is like kind of like giving us a hint that probably cyanobacteria was the first formed organisms before plants. So maybe they are the precursors for the plants that we have today. Apart from chlorophyll A, they have some other pigments which are called as phycobilins. So there are two types of phycobilins. One is what we call it as phycoerythrin. Whenever we are seeing this word erythrin, it means it is red in color. Erythrocyte is red blood cell. So similarly, if you are seeing this eri, the word eri, it stands for red. And then phycocyanin is a blue color pigment, blue-green pigment maybe. Okay, so these are the pigments which are present in cyanobacteria. If you guys are done, please let me know so that I can start. So I'm drawing the structure of cyanobacteria. Please copy it also simultaneously. Because I am drawing. Okay, just give me some time. Children, you can see that mic symbol there. Okay. So if I'm talking, no, and if you're not able to hear, you just see whether it is mine is muted. If it is not muted, I'm not talking. Okay. I know this is difficult because we all think that our technology has some problem. But in a normal class, if I'm drawing, you might not like you'll know that I'm not talking. In an online class, please understand it. So if you are copied, like what I will try to do is I'll start explaining. Okay. So this particular cyanobacteria, no. So if you are looking at an ultra structure of cyanobacteria, you will see that it is not very different from your bacterial cell. Okay. So if you are seeing here, you are able to see that the DNA is central, which is not covered by any nuclear membrane. So what kind of cell is this? It is not covered by a nuclear membrane. So what kind of cell is this? It is prokaryotic cell. Very good. So children are answering. Very good. Very good. So it is a prokaryotic cell. So what is the thing? So we already know that there are two cell layers. One is what we call it as the cell membrane. Okay. So outside the cell membrane, you have a cell wall. So there are two layers of cell structures which are here. One is what we call it as a cell membrane, and the other one is what we call it as a cell wall. This is coming under Monera, which means what do you think should make this cell wall? This is a member of Monera. So cell wall should be made up of non-cellulose substance. Very good. So here also the cellulose, the substance is peptidoglycan. So here also the cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan, which is not cellulose. It is a non-cellulose polysaccharide. It is. Okay. So this is something that you need to understand. Okay. And then then you are able to see that in this particular species, you have one more covering layer, which is called as a slime layer. Okay. So some of these species you are able to see the slime layer is you are able to see what is the role of the slime layer. It will not allow to dry. Say for example, the slime layer will be made up of some substances which will not allow them to dry easily. And apart from that, you are having protein crystals. What is the role of this protein crystals? Protein crystals will contain protein. Similarly, you have lipid granules. Lipid granules will be storing this particular lipids, whatever has been produced. So here, the only distinct structure that you are able to see is that of a thylakoid. Okay, thylakoid is the one. Thylakoid is like kind of a structure which is where the photosynthesis will take place. So thylakoid is like a kind of a membrane in which your different pigments will be present. We have studied about the pigments. What are the pigments? Phycoerythrin, phycobilin, and chlorophyll. So this chlorophyll and phycobilin will be present inside this thylakoids. So thylakoid is the location where what is happening? Your photosynthesis is happening. Okay. So please understand the only difference here is the presence of thylakoid. And then you are having gas vacuole. This gas vacuole will store gas, which will allow the organism to float. So someone is saying that this is not necessary in water, right? The slime layer. Yes, the slime layer is not necessary in water. Mostly it is found in terrestrial organisms. Now, what is the difference between presence and absence of cellulose in cell wall? You are asking me. Okay. So basically the strength of the cell is variant. Okay. Different organisms will be made up of different kinds of cell walls. So say for example, cellulose is like kind of like one kind of a stone, and then peptidoglycan is another kind of stone. Just imagine it this way. What is the difference between a granite wall and a wall which is made up of red sandstone? There is a difference basically. So that kind of difference only. So some walls you can build it with hollow blocks. Some walls you can build it with, say for example, red brick. You can build it with hollow block. You can build it with red brick, or you can also build it with granite wall stones. So basically, these are all different stones, but the wall is only the same. So similarly, here also, what you understand is the cell wall is made up of different types of different organisms have different kind of cell wall. Some will have cellulose. Most of the organisms will have cellulose if they are having cell wall in the higher organisms. In the lower organisms, you don't have cellulose, but instead of cellulose, you have a different material which is called as peptidoglycan. Okay, so that is what is the difference between a cellulosic cell wall and a non-cellulosic cell wall. It is just like two different structures. So this is what is the basic structure. You please understand that there are some organisms, cyanobacteria, which will be occurring in the form of filament. In these organisms, there are some specific kind of cells, specific area cells, which are called as heterocyst, which is responsible for nitrogen fixation. Okay, so there is this organism, there is this group of organisms which are there, cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria will have a particular structure which is called as heterocyst. So this heterocyst is responsible for nitrogen fixation. Okay, so one more thing that you are seeing here is no flagella. Okay, so motility is because of gliding movement. Gliding movement na sarikittu poradhu. Okay, so something like you go in a circus, that kind of thing. So it is because of some, it will glide and go. Slime, usually the role of slime is not for movement. Slime is only to protect moisture. Most of these will just like that swim. I mean, like the structure, the basic structure itself is very small, so they can just glide. Okay, so the important point is heterocyst. Then the mode of nutrition is autotrophic, and reproduction. The gas vacuole will help in floating in water. Okay, they will not help in gliding movement. Gas vacuole is filled with gas, and then maybe if they are in water, that will help them to float. The reproduction is asexual, mostly through binary fission or budding or fragmentation. Okay, so these are the points for cyanobacteria. So mode of nutrition, you please take it down. Reproduction, you take it down. And examples, you can go for Anabaena, Nostoc, Spirulina, Spirogyra, Oscillatoria. These are all organisms. Examples. Okay. So what are the uses of this organism? Some uses of this cyanobacteria you should know. The first important thing is cyanobacteria is used as they are rich in oxygen production. Okay, they fix nitrogen. They fix nitrogen for plants. They can live in the roots, near the roots freely, or like in association, symbiotic association, and they can fix nitrogen. The third thing is Spirogyra kind of thing is used as food. Okay, so you remember this? These guys are there, no? Like space people who go to space. They will try to take a tablet which is called as which are like kind of like made from these organisms. So there is this organism which is called as chlorella. Okay, and spirulina. These spirulina and spirulina is a substance which is produced from Spirogyra. Okay, this chlorella and the spirulina can be used as food or nutrient tablets. Okay, so Spirogyra and all is used as food. That is a very important thing. So space travelers will try to use it and take it. This one is rich in protein. And the last one is the last one is not an important use, but it is a problem, disadvantage. They release toxins. So there are some kind of cyanobacteria which can release toxin into the water, and it can create a problem in the aquatic scene. Okay, so you please understand that disadvantage is they release toxins which are harmful to the water body. No, algal bloom is caused by algae. Tambi, you're all taking these tablets, no? Some of this thing, the spirulina is like a structure, um, which is like kind of like, it will be like looking like a green basically. You just take it as a powder, you make it as a powder, you mix it along with the food and you can eat it. Or you can make it as a tablet and you can eat it. Or you can like kind of like convert it into some kind of like dish and then you can eat it. So basically what is the thing is it will look like almost look like a green color powder it will look like. Okay, which they can make it into like small pancakes and then like you can eat it. Or like you can have like a different will it be veg or non-veg? It is actually vegetarian because it is coming from plant source. It will not be considered as a thing because like they are like plants basically. They are precursors for plants. Okay, so it is still considered as vegetarian because they are not. Just because we use the word bacteria, it doesn't mean that they are animals because they behave more like plants. Okay, so this is like kind of a very promising area. Why? Because they can grow very fast and they can really substitute lots of these foods that we use, and then they are rich in protein also, so it is a healthful option. Okay, I have a very long question here. Several strains of cyanobacteria were found to accumulate polyhydroxy alkanoates, which can be used as a substitute for non-biodegradable petrochemical based plastics. Can it be a use? Yes, it can be used as a use, but that is not something, I mean, maybe it is all like recent discoveries, which is not gone into your textbooks. Okay, so with this thing, cyanobacteria is over. So now we are moving to archaebacteria. My voice is coming low. I'll try to shout, but already I'm in my top of my voice only. So see if you can increase your volume a little bit. So the last part of this Monera is archaebacteria. So first I will write some notes. I will not be talking for a while. Okay. So please don't think that I'm not talking. I mean, like, please don't think that there is a problem in your system. I'm not going to talk for a while. I'm just going to write some notes. So please copy it. Okay, children. So this is what is some basic information about archaebacteria. Okay. So archaebacteria are the oldest organisms that are living even today. Okay. So please understand, when the evolution came, the organisms came into the picture. Probably the first formed organisms have been evolved into two distinct categories. One which became whatever is seen as bacteria, archaebacteria. Okay. So probably there was a first formed structure which kind of evolved into two different things. Okay. So this particular structure, archaebacteria, has not come out into the mainstream at all. They have been living in a secluded place. They have been isolated, and they are found in environment only at certain spots where there are extreme conditions. They can live under extreme conditions. Okay, they can live in conditions where there is no oxygen at all. In that case, we call them as anaerobes. They can live in places where there are high salt. In that case, we will call them as what? I think I told you all these things already. Yes, exactly. Halophiles. Halo means salt. Phile means lover. Okay, salt lover. Phile means attraction basically. Salt attracted organisms are called as halophiles. So they can live in extreme salt condition. What is the meaning of thermophile? What attracted? Attracted towards what? Heat, high temperature. Exactly. So it is something which is attracted towards high temperature. Then you have thermoacidophiles, which will live in hot as well as acidic condition. Okay. So they can survive under extreme pH conditions. What is the basic thing that is attracting all the scientists is that their cell wall is not at all looking like the normal bacteria. Okay, the polysaccharide which is present there is very unique. It is also made up of polysaccharide. The polysaccharide is not cellulose. At the same time, it is not peptidoglycan. Okay, the cell wall has a very unique structure which is very different from all the organisms observed in the earth. And they have proteins which are also very different from the normal proteins. Okay, so what is the meaning of this protein? So please understand, normally normal proteins will die at 40 degrees Celsius. Okay, so in your body, if your temperature is going to be 40 degrees Celsius, your body's proteins and all will start functioning very bad. That is why, like yesterday, Trichy recorded a temperature of 40 plus degrees Celsius. Had you been going out and then like coming back, you would have felt very tired because all your enzymes in your body would have gone to non-functional mode. So after going out in the sun and then like staying there in that 40 degree temperature, and then if you're coming back, you would have felt very bad, and you would have felt very, that kind of tiredness you would have got. Why? Because the temperature outside has made the internal temperature a little bit, it would have caused the rising of that internal temperature, and naturally your proteins would have degraded. Okay, so ultimately, please understand that these bacteria are living in such extreme conditions and they are able to survive, which means the proteins which are making that thing is not normal, and the polysaccharide which is like making this particular kind of cell is totally different from a normal cell. Okay, and then like finally you have the cell membrane. Cell membrane is not made up of normal fats. The word lipid here means fats. Normal fats will be like normal chains will be making it. So if you see a bacterial cell wall, it will be made up of a phospholipid kind of structure, but here it is branched, is what they are saying. So which means probably the cell wall membrane will not look like this, but it will look like this. which is like kind of branched. So this is like kind of making the organism a little bit more complicated so that it is able to survive in harsh temperatures, harsh conditions. So that is what we mean by branched chain lipids. These bacteria can live in thermal vents. Imagine thermal vent and all will be like in boiling water condition. They can survive in 100 degrees Celsius. They can survive in areas where there is volcanic eruptions. So then you understand what kind of temperature that they can survive on. Of course, they are not found in the lava, but surrounding areas of volcanic eruptions region, you can see this bacteria. These bacteria might be harmful to us. We don't know, but whether because these bacteria do not come into places where your humans survive. So they are all found only in those places. When humans go there, they will not be able to survive in such a condition that they live in. Probably we can go collect those samples, we can study. That's all. Okay, we cannot go there and then like we cannot be like living in those regions. So now the last part of the lesson, we just have like 7 minutes more to complete this class. I will be completing this chapter. So the last part, Archaebacteria is divided into two types. Strict anaerobes. Aerobes or facultative anaerobes. There are two types of these things. Under strict anaerobes, you have methanogens, methane producing bacteria. They are found in marshy lands. They are found in cow's gut. Then you have the second category, which is called as halophiles. Okay, they will be living in extreme salt condition. And they produce ATP from sun. If you're talking about this other class, you have thermophiles and thermoacidophiles. They survive in hot sulfur springs. They are mostly chemoautotrophs. Okay, so this is what it is. So please understand that these are the classes of Archaebacteria. If you're talking about archaebacteria can be divided into strict anaerobes, which means they cannot survive in the presence of oxygen. Rigidly, they are found only in anaerobic situations. Okay, so what will happen is like these particular organisms will live in locations where there is no oxygen. Example, cow's gut. Okay, so this methanogen can be found in the rumen of the cattle. So inside the stomach of this particular cow, you have a place which is called as rumen. So in that particular place, it will try to survive, and then it will come out in the gas plant. Yeah, right. So in a biogas plant, where is the organism methane is produced from? Methane is produced by these organisms which are called as methanogens. Methanogens. Gens means generating. Okay. So these are organisms that generate methane. They are found in very marshy lands. They can found in gut of the cow, and they will be able to produce your methane. And the second class is what we call it as halophiles. Halophiles are organisms that live in extreme salt conditions, and they are anaerobes. What these organisms might do is, these organisms can utilize sunlight, and they cannot produce glucose from it, but rather what they will do is they'll directly produce ATP. Okay, they will not be like behaving like photoautotrophs. What they will try to do is, they are also like kind of like autotrophs only, but instead of producing glucose and trying to use it, what they would try to do is like they will try to produce ATP directly. Yes, oxygen is absent in the cow's gut. There are some portions of the cow's gut where oxygen is absent. If you're talking about aerobes, there are some organisms which are aerobes which will live under oxygen condition, or they are facultative anaerobes, which means what is the meaning of facultative? Like they will go and come back, that kind of thing. They can be in oxygen where they can switch to anaerobic condition, and they can be anaerobic for some time and they can switch back. So this is what we call it as a facultative anaerobes. While you're talking about facultative anaerobes, you have two categories. One is what we call it as thermophiles, and the other one is called as thermoacidophiles. Thermophiles, we saw that they will live in high temperature. Thermoacidophiles, I said that they will live in high acidic conditions. So they are found in hot sulfur springs, hot water springs, and most of these organisms are chemoautotrophs, which means they will try to produce energy from chemicals. Okay, so with this thing, kingdom Monera is over. Halophiles are present in very, very salty seas, marshy lands. So you talk about Sundarban. Okay, so in Sundarban, the salt will be very salty, so they can live in the salty conditions. So near seashores, there are some salty, saline, marshy areas. Those areas they can live. Okay, so with this thing, we are completed today's class. So I'll just quickly. They just survive there. They don't use the salt and all. Microbes and all will not have something called as a lifespan. Okay, basically when they divide into two, they stop to exist. That's all. One organism is dividing into two in terms of binary fission. The moment one is divided, the first organism died, and the other two things are there. So probably you can say that they are immortal because the first organism is still surviving somewhere. Okay, so this is biological classification. We studied the basics. So then we studied about the classification. So I have completed this part, cyanobacteria also today. I have completed archaebacteria also today. Then the third slide. Then the fourth slide. Then the fifth slide. Then the sixth slide. Then you have the 7th slide. Then you have the 8th slide. With this thing, today's class is over. My structure of archaebacteria is not required. Can you give some examples? There are something methanogens are there, so you have this bacterium. It's a good example. You don't remember the names of these things, they're not worth it. Whatever is given in your CBSE textbook, you can read. That should be sufficient. Okay, thank you, children. Thank you, Vignesh. Thank you, children. That is because not all cyanobacteria will be able to fix nitrogen. Those which are capable of fixing nitrogen will have heterocyst, or those which have heterocyst will fix nitrogen. Okay, some organisms only do it. Sir, I'm done. Thank you.